I met my best friend of like 22 years when I was 14, going on 15. And she kind of like took me under her wing. And I didn't know at the time that she like had a raging drug problem, but she was nice to me. And nobody had been nice to me up until that point, like just out of nowhere. She like did my makeup for me, and I was a total stranger, total awkward kid, like a little chubby. And I started to like run with her and her friends, who again were like all older. I honestly couldn't tell you because I never went long enough to feel any sort of withdrawal. I'm positive that I would have felt it if I didn't have alcohol, but I made sure I always had something, whether it be like something from 7-Eleven or like leftover like little shit in the bottom of all of the pints of Georgie that I had thrown in my closet. So I said I better get my ass to a detox. And there's a detox here in New York called Cornerstone, and you can literally call them and they'll pick you up. And I called them on Monday and they picked me up on Tuesday, September 15th. And I'd love to say that like everything's stuck there, but it didn't. You know, I was really, really sick, and the methadone that they were giving me on the detox didn't even touch me.
This is Rock Bottom with Ryan. No sugarcoating, no filters. The pain, the chaos, the truth. No bullshit. Just recovery.
If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, mental health challenges, or the effects of trauma, you don't have to face it alone. Campbell Recovery Services is built on the belief that recovery is possible for everyone. Their experienced team provides personalized assessments, counseling, and guidance from the very first phone call, helping people build a path towards lasting recovery. Not just getting sober, but creating a more healthier, fulfilling life. Founder John Campbell understands this journey personally and has dedicated his life to helping others find the same hope and freedom he found. If you're ready to take that first step, reach out to Campbell Recovery Services today. Recovery starts with one conversation. So call 214-471-5947 or check him out on Instagram at Campbell Recovery Services. Check them out. Amazing company. Thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in sponsoring the show, don't hesitate to DM me. Thanks a lot, y'all.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom with Ryan. I'm here with my guest today, Lauren Brown. Lauren, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing awesome. I've been really excited anticipating this interview for weeks, so I'm glad it's finally taken place. And it's been really fun getting to know you over social media and through the Dopey podcast is kind of how I met you, and been excited to know like more deep into your story about what Lauren experienced, you know, during addiction, before addiction. And so what is your sober date and drink or drug of choice, where you're from, some of the basics?
So I'm from Long Island, New York. I've been here pretty much all my life, just like all over the island. My sober date is November 3rd, 2020. And my drug of choice, drink of choice was just yes. Like if it was available, I wanted to have it. It was like more was my drug of choice for sure.
Yeah, no, that's I get that answer every now and again. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. There wasn't a lot I would have said no to, but there was a couple things that hooked me more than others. But if you put it in front of me, I was like, all right, I'll take it. So
Yeah, pretty much.
But alcohol and cocaine were the ones that took me down the most and probably cost me the most money and relationships and everything. But yeah, I want to hear about how it all started, like what happened before drugs and alcohol came into the mix. What was childhood like what was your family dynamic? What were some of the things that you did in childhood, good times, bad times, everything?
Yeah, I mean, like from the outside looking in, my childhood was pretty normative. I grew up in a family of alcoholics. I had an uncle who was a drug addict back in the day. And so, like, alcohol was a very normal part of our family. It was at celebrations, it was at dinner. It wasn't frowned upon. So, like, very early years, you know, things were all right. There was dysfunction in my household. My mom was a drinker and my dad struggled with mental health. And so from very early on, there was a lot of trauma, a lot of fights in the house. And I took on like the role of a like guardian for my younger sister. And so I had to like grow up very quickly. I don't know when my actual first taste of alcohol is, but I remember my first memory of alcohol. And I was probably somewhere between 8 and 9. My family had gone over to Germany on a trip, and it's like very normal there for kids to drink. And so my first drink that I remember having is like German beer mixed with Sprite. And even there, I knew that I didn't drink normal because I just wanted more. Like I wanted that thing again. Like,
Even
oh, I
at an
get to
age
do one
8 or
of the
9?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And it wasn't until like reflecting back, getting ready for this, that I realized I had that feeling. And everywhere we went, like if we went to a restaurant, I wanted that. We went to South France at one point and they did schnapps tasting and I asked for that. And like I was a little kid at this point. So it was always there for me. And yeah, alcohol was definitely like my first love. It made me feel like I could be relaxed when I didn't have that at home.
Yeah, so you had like a mother who obviously drank, your dad who had suffered from mental illness. Can I ask like what mental illness he was suffering from? Was it like depression, schizophrenia, anything along those lines?
I mean, I don't know the actual diagnosis. I now, like years later, can reflect back and think that he was struggling with bipolar, but it was never like an easy conversation, that conversation. It never got talked about. Like the threats of violence that happened in my house never got talked about. It was like, oh no, let's like look over here at this other thing.
Don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like everybody in my family knew what was going on, but outside of that, nobody really knew. And we knew not to ask. So my sister and I didn't ask.
Okay. So you said like when you had drinks at like age 8 or 9 and you started to feel like it was a solution to something, like it felt like you just wanted it to relax, like what kind of things do you think you personally were going through like on your own at that age that you felt the need to numb?
I know I felt like I had to perform because of the chaos that was like going on in our house. I never felt like I was doing good enough, that I was being recognized. And I can look back now and see that like my mom was doing the best she could with what she had available with the situation. And unfortunately, like that meant that I didn't get the attention I now looking back would have given to myself if I was the parent in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just that feeling, that hole that I thought I had inside me for such a long time that now in sobriety I know is non-existent.
Yeah, no, I understand. I did. And you had siblings and everything, or?
So I have one actual sibling. She's 3 years younger than me. My mom remarried later on in like 2001. And I have two step siblings from that marriage. I'm the oldest of everybody though. So it did kind of like set that bar high for like the expectations of what my behavior should be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how was your relationship with them growing up, like going through, because obviously they experienced a lot of the dysfunction too. Did you kind of look to them for support, or they looked to you since you were the older one, or how did that go?
So my younger sister definitely did look to me for support because she was so young when all of this was happening. She doesn't remember a lot of it, plus the trauma, like her brain just blocked it out, which is okay. But I really didn't have and still don't really have much of a relationship with my step siblings just because they have their own stuff going on. So, I'm there. I was always there, just it wasn't
Yeah.
meaningful, I should say. Yeah.
Okay. So how, if you don't mind me asking, how long after your parents? So your dad already had kids from a previous marriage, is that?
No,
Or
my
no, your
stepdad
mom
did.
remarried. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, my mom remarried.
Okay.
My dad had a lot of relationships, almost got remarried, but nothing ever actually like panned out because he was only able to hold that facade for so long before like his illness shone through and like his like destabilized behavior came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The red
So
flags would kind of come through, and then they would start to realize it, and then the relationship would kind of fail. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then unfortunately, like it's that trickle down effect. And so when the relationship would fail, then it would like fall onto his mom. And then my sister and I, like we would get the brunt of that blowback. And that's true even up until like 3 years ago. So that hasn't changed.
Wow. And how old were you when your parents got divorced? And was it tough on you, or were you kind of relieved that the family dynamic was separated at that point, or how did you feel?
So I have like a distinct memory from very soon after we got back from Germany. Like things were not good when we went to Germany. And when we got back, it was pretty soon after that, my mom and dad came out and said, like, we're getting separated. We don't know what's going to happen. And then the next thing I knew, it was like they were divorced. And for a brief moment, I remember my mom being like, it's just going to be us, like me, you, and Kayla, my sister, and it will be like the Three Musketeers. And like this is like one of my vivid childhood memories. And looking back, it seems like it was like a blip. And then my stepdad was moved in with us.
Wow.
But it probably wasn't that fast. It's just, you know, how memory is. But it was relatively soon after. Um, so there's always been a lot of codependency, like in my entire family, even looking back to like my grandparents and my great grandparents. It's always been there, undertones.
Yeah, and that's something you became aware of later on in life, looking back, or is that something you kind of understood at the time?
I mean, I don't think I knew what it was. I don't think I realized that it was different than everybody else, but I knew that, like, regardless of what was going on, I was supposed to show up. And regardless of how it made me felt or what the other person did, like, I was to be there for them. And you know, like I still struggle with that today sometimes and like understanding that the guilt that I have about setting boundaries is not actually my guilt. But that's not something I knew back then. I
Yeah.
didn't understand that much.
Okay. Okay. So tell me, like, as life progressed, you go into like your teen years. What was life like going into teen years, high school, all the pressures of high school? I know that's when things really start to change physically and emotionally and stuff. Like, how did that go for you?
Yeah, so going into seventh grade, my mom moved us out of the town I had grown up in to like the farther east end of the island, which like growing up in a pretty urban area was kind of like moving to the middle of the country, like the middle of nowhere. So I knew nobody. I was going into school where everybody had grown up together. And like I was a little chubby and I was a little alternative. And going into school, I got picked on like literally the first day. So junior high was pretty rough for me. And junior high is when a lot of like my self-destructive behaviors started coming out, where I started like becoming obsessed with boys and like cutting myself and like stealing cigarettes from my grandparents and like drinking a little here and there with friends and you know like just not being home. I
How were your
smoked weed for
grades?
the first. I've always been a pretty good student, and that's kind of why like my behavior was more seen as like acting out than related to substances. Because even up into college, like I did well in college and I did college like drunk. So I was, you know, fortunate that way. But yeah, you know, like smoking weed at the stump and it wasn't problematic, but it was definitely an outlet at that point. I found like a small group of friends that were all like the weird kids and like just hung out with them. And then going into high school, I started hanging out with older kids because I went in as a freshman and I had a lot of friends that were juniors and seniors at that point, and that's kind of when things took off.
And you
That's
mentioned
when,
the weird kids and stuff. I never
yeah,
understood that, and that's one thing I never liked about high school is that it was so cliquish. Because I even think saying for myself, but I've talked to friends from high school, and they said that I kind of talked to or hung out with every different clique at some way, shape, or form, just because I didn't really feel like I fit into one specifically. I thought I have my introverted awkward side. I have my skateboarder side. I have my jock side. You know, it's like I didn't really like understand how some people were segregated to one area or considered weird. So I was just kind of like, I don't know. That's just one thing I never agreed
So
with.
I grew up in like a middle class to upper lower class area as a young kid. It's a town called Freeport. There are some really nice parts of Freeport, but it's predominantly like a low SES. And so like I grew up around a lot of Hispanic people and a lot of Black people and like dressed different than everybody and spoke different than everybody. And I walked places and coming out to where I was as a teenager or like a adolescent, it was not like that. Like there were no sidewalks. I had like pink in my hair at 11 and nobody did that. Everybody had designer clothes and I didn't have that. And it was just it was very like preppy and I was not. I never have been. Like that's just not
Yeah.
my aesthetic.
Yeah, my mother didn't have much money. My parents were divorced. My mother didn't have much money. My dad did, but she had sole custody, and he paid child support, which got me into this private school. So like I lived very poor, but then I was going to this school with a bunch of rich kids who had we had uniforms and stuff. But then nobody ever wanted to come to my house or anything because I didn't have the big ball in house like sport courts and swimming pools like they did. So it was just I always felt out of place. So I don't know
Yeah.
if I can resonate with you a little bit on that, but
No,
yeah.
that definitely is that. But I had kind of accepted that as part of my identity. Like I tried to be friends with like the all girls in the school, and that's who bullied me. Like, because I wore the same socks as one of them on the first day of school, and that carried all through junior high. And so I ended up like falling into like the stoner kids and the art kids, but not like the National Art Honor Society kids, just like the ones that do it for fun. And then in high school, I joined stage crew. And like, I don't know how it is out by you, but in New York, like if you're on stage crew, it's because you're like dark and demented and like a social outcast. So
So I said, no, I
yeah.
get it. So I get it. But at least you found your group and stuff. And did you feel comfortable in it? And but do you think at the same time it was like a bad influence on you because you met your group of friends and they were all doing the same thing?
So it was like a catch 22, right? Because I fell in with those kids, and some of them were actually a really good influence on me. That like all we would do is like drink a little bit, smoke a little weed. It wasn't the end of the world. And they were very dedicated to like being on stage crew and like watching anime. And the older ones of those people, they kind of like fell out of the rotation of being involved in extracurricular activities. And they were like driving and racing cars and going shoplifting. And I gravitated towards those people. I met my best friend of like 20, 22 years when I was 14, going on 15. And she kind of like took me under her wing. And I didn't know at the time that she like had a raging drug problem, but she was nice to me. And nobody had been nice to me up until that point, like just out of nowhere. She like did my makeup for me, and I was a total stranger, total awkward kid, like a little chubby. And I started to like run with her and her friends, who again were like all older. And my friends from stage crew that were just like smoking a little bit of weed and drinking a little on the weekends saw that I was like totally enthralled with that lifestyle, like stealing
Yeah.
clothes and yeah.
I went through the shoplifting craze when I was in the eighth grade to freshman year of high school, and it was just addictive for me to get that adrenaline rush. Like stealing things I didn't even like personally want or need, but I was just got that rush out of it. Like I think I stole an Enya CD one time, and I was like, I don't even listen to Enya. I listened to rap music at the time, but I was like, hey, I got it for free,
Very
and then just
cool.
gave it to a girl or something that I wanted to impress. I don't know.
Well,
So,
it's like that actually becomes really important in my story later on because like that was how I made a living for a few years. And well, like a year and a half was the stealing. And it's that rush and it's the ritual and it's like knowing that you're doing this thing that you're not supposed to do and you're getting away with it. And like, yeah, you feel like you're special, or at least I did.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And you feel kind of cool too at the same time because people are like, how do you
Yeah.
get this stuff so often? And, I was getting MP3 players and stuff, and I thought I was so cool until I got caught. And
Mhm.
then I don't know. But so take me into those days a little bit. Fast forward, high school, you went to college, and then was it after
Yeah.
college where that started? Or did college, did everything escalate quite a bit?
So
Drinking
in
and stuff?
high school, I started dabbling with like opiate pills, cocaine. Like 15, if I could get my hands on cocaine, I was. And my friends like were trying to protect me, so they would tell like the dealer, "Don't answer Lauren's calls. Tell her that you're not good." Like so, going into senior year, like I was doing coke as often as possible. I was drinking probably twice a week and I was sniffing opiate pills and I was stealing them from my mom. Like yellow Norcos had just come on the scene, and so I was getting those at like $7 a pill. I was working at the pizzeria, and my dealer was the delivery guy for the pizzeria. So it was just like this
Convenience.
whole,
Yeah.
yeah. I graduated high school. I never got to finish out high school on stage crew because my drinking and drug use like became too much of a conflict, and everybody tried to call me out on it. I like threatened suicide, like all of the chaos that comes with like teen years plus drug use. And so they asked me to leave the stage crew, and I did. I graduated like the top 13% of my class. My grades were great, but like I hated myself, and I was just looking for that external thing to make me feel better. So senior year, graduate, get in a relationship with somebody who was like not necessarily like abusive, but it was just very codependent. And I was sniffing pills behind his back, and I told him I had stopped. And then it got to the point that like he wanted to start experimenting with drugs, and so he allowed me to do cocaine again. And then I was doing cocaine a lot more frequently, sniffing somas, like just anything I can get my hands on. I got big into roxycodone at that point, and in 2000, I'm probably going to get the year wrong. I think it was 2009, might have been 2010. One of my really good friends from that group had overdosed on cocaine and
Oh,
died.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like the
Tough.
price of like living that lifestyle. And it wasn't the first friend that I'd had that overdosed and passed away, but this was the closest one to home. And the day like is seared in my memory. Like there was a fire in the house across the street from where I was staying when it happened, and like it was just crazy. So when that happened, I pulled back a lot. And then in 2012, I had stopped doing cocaine altogether. I put down all the dry goods, like stopped smoking weed, everything. But I was still drinking. And like unbeknownst to me, I thought because I knew what an alcoholic looked like, that I was just like being a normal teenager. And that was not the case at all. Like I always took it one step further. I mean, I graduated college. I graduated with a 3.8. I went to school for psychology. So again, like I thought I
Same.
knew,
Nice.
and really I knew nothing. The relationship that I was in right after high school ended pretty much as a result of my behavior and like my need to do more drugs. Like I would call our friends and be like, "Hey, can we go cop?" Like, "Well, why? What do you need?" I'm like, "Well, I just want to do it." Like, "No, I'm not. I'm not calling the guy." Like that was always the thing, was I seldom had direct access, and I always had to go through somebody else. And so always having to go through somebody else made it very easy for people to see that I was doing it way more than everybody else was
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
So
But you
yeah,
were
the
you
really,
were pretty functional, it sounds like, though. You were still getting stuff done. You're still getting grades. You're still just able to like kind of
yeah,
maintain a life or an image outside of the partying and the drug use.
somewhat, yeah. So, I graduated, I got a pretty good job. I was at that job for a long time, drinking the whole time, paying rent, doing adult things, and living a pretty medial life. I met my ex-husband at that job, and while I was with him, I got a gastric sleeve. So they like cut out like 70% of my stomach. I lost a whole bunch of weight, but part of that was I had to stop drinking. And I had never tried to stop seriously before that. And I had a really hard time. They put me on some benzos to like help me with sleep and help with the withdrawal. And I was just taking the benzos and drinking with it. I was having like these blackout episodes.
And
Then
I
I
hear
started
drinking's
stealing
different when you get that surgery. Is that true?
so much. Yeah. So this was all before the surgery, like the benzos and the blackout and everything. It was in hopes to get me to stop for the surgery. I was able to put it down for like 2 weeks beforehand and 45 days after. And then, like, I distinctly remember my ex-husband accusing me of drinking. And so I was like, well, if you're going to fucking accuse me, then I'm going to fucking drink.
Yeah.
And I went out 45 days post-surgery and I thought I could handle like Midnight Moon, and
Mm-hmm.
I could not. And the night ended with me like throwing a cinder block at him, slicing my leg open, like, and I had no recollection of it until the next morning when I woke up and like he informed me. So from then on, it was a lot of like, all right, I won't drink this and I'll only drink this and I won't drink before this time, or I'll only drink on this days and I won't drink any hard liquor. That was 2015. I had the surgery. And like that song and dance went on until 2017 when I got really drunk at a party. I took off running. I sat down in front of my ex-husband's car and he ran over me, not knowing that I was there. And thankfully, I'm okay. Like, there were no long-term effects that I know of from that accident, but it was like my license to do whatever I wanted moving forward. And I hadn't like picked up hard drugs seriously at that point, and I really didn't have the intention of. But then marijuana became a big thing for me because it was like, all right, well, this is how I'm managing my pain and drinking, and like every night it was like a ritual that I would go get a bunch of shooters on my way home from work, and like the Bacardi 100 proof shooters, and
Yeah.
like I would do those while I'm driving, and then I was allowed one bottle of wine a night at home, and so I'd go get the bottle of wine and I'd get the biggest one with the highest
Mm-hmm.
alcohol by volume. And by the time my ex-husband would get home, I'd be fucking passed out, blacked out in the bed, having pissed myself. Like it was
Just
awful.
how much do you think you were consuming in an average day, do you think?
Truthfully, it was at least 1 750 of wine, and I would pick up like six of those little shooters on the way home.
The 750 is like the big bottle, right? Like the
The big
double.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the half gallon
Yeah.
looking one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would get, like the barefoot one would have like 11.5, or I get Manischewitz because they're 13.5. Like I knew which ones to go for to get the biggest punch. That went on until September of 2018 when I got drunk while driving my ex-husband's car, ran out of gas, had to call him to take an Uber to meet me in the middle of the road where I broke down. And then, like, when he tried to address it with me, I was drunk, obviously. And I started to, like, self-harm myself, punching myself, like, trying to break my glasses and cut myself with them. And he, like, reached over to stop me, and I bit him. And he called the police. They took me to the hospital for a mental health evaluation. They held me for 24 hours, and then they released me when I got home. My ex-husband was gone and all of his stuff. And that was the last time I saw him for like almost 6 years.
Wow.
Well, maybe not 6 years, 4 years. It was a while. And from then on, like I couldn't afford the rent at the place that we were at by myself, so I had to move. I had 10 days to do it. So I did that in like a brownout, and I moved to this place with a bunch of other ladies that were younger and drank all the time. And so I was still drinking all the time. I started working at an animal shelter and I met a guy there who was like in early recovery and not drinking, and, started seeing him because I knew at that point my marriage was done. He was a terrible alcoholic, and I didn't know that it was that bad. And so that was like November of 2018 into like March of 2019. I was with this guy, and
He
like
was
we
formerly
loved,
an alcoholic, but sober when you met him.
yeah, but
Okay.
I wasn't. And of
Okay.
course, like you meet somebody, you don't want them to know how bad everything is. So you're like, yeah, I drink occasionally, like,
Always. Yeah.
yeah. And, he was very forthcoming, like, well, I can't drink. I just got out of like trouble and trying not to do it. I haven't done it. And, he very quickly realized that like I was not being honest and I had a negative effect on him, and he started drinking again. And it got to the point where like I was drinking from the time I woke up to the time I passed out. I was
Were you
drinking
suffering
at
from
work.
withdrawal symptoms and stuff too?
I honestly couldn't tell you because I never went long enough to feel any sort of withdrawal. I'm positive that I would have felt it if I didn't have alcohol, but I made sure I always had something, whether it be like something from 7-Eleven or like leftover, like little shit in the bottom of all of the pints of Georgie that I had thrown in my closet. Like, yeah, it was wild. And shortly after like him starting drinking again, things got physically violent with him. And like I eventually had to call the police on him because of him physically assaulting me. And then I started drinking more. And in March of well, I skipped something really important. In January of 2019, I got arrested for the first time for DWI. I was like on my way back from meeting our weed dealer. And I was like, oh, I'll just stop and get a pint on the way home. And I'll drink it before I get back to the house. And then I can drink more at the house because you won't know that I had drank that. Well, I drank the pint so fast that I got super drunk and I knew I couldn't drive. I pulled over on the side of the road at a stop sign and passed out in the car with my foot on the brake, the keys in the ignition, and the car still in drive. The
Wow.
homeowner called the police, yeah, and I got arrested. When the police came to do like field sobriety, I did all of them, I think, all right, except for walking the line. And the second I tried, I knew I was going to get arrested. So I just like turned around and put my hands behind my back. And the next day, like you would think after arraignment that would have been enough. And it was not at all. I went back. They allowed my boyfriend at the time to pick up the car. And he thought he got all of the alcohol out of the car, but he didn't. And I went right back and I got the vodka out of the car that I had left there. I started drinking the next day.
Same here after
And
my
then,
DUI. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, all right, that wasn't so bad.
I'll just continue until my court date and then figure it out then.
Exactly, exactly. Like, oh, they're just going to send me to treatment. Like, whatever. It's fine. It's fine. And so when I started going to court, I got bounced around between public defenders in the beginning. And all the while, I was still drinking and smoking weed. And finally, it all came to a head one night when, this ex-boyfriend was like, I don't remember what triggered it, but he was like choking me till I passed out and then waking me up and doing it again. And I had like a Red Ryder BB gun and I ended up like swinging it at this guy and having to like crack him in the head a couple of times. And then finally he laughed and I said, if you don't leave, like I'm calling the cops on you again. I'm pressing charges this time. I'm done. At that point, he was like, I'm not drinking. I was really trying not to drink. So I went into work the next day. I was no longer working at the animal shelter. I was working at a school. And like I was covered in bruises. I looked bad. And my coworkers at the time were like, that's it. Like, we're putting you on Bumble. You need to lose this guy. So they put me on a dating app on Bumble. And like I matched with a couple of people and then I matched with this guy who was like, oh, in early recovery. He was like, had a nice smile, had good eyes, this, that, and the third. So I messaged him. And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to get sober too. Like, you want to meet? And everything was fine and dandy. That was like April of 2019. I was still drinking, but it was like just normal drinking for me. It's not like I was like drinking and having the cops called,
You were
which is really not
slightly
normal. But
controlled. Yeah. I was the same way. Like my controlled drinking was like 8 to 10 drinks a day because I didn't get in any trouble and I didn't black out. I considered that behaved. So,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. It's like, all right, I woke up where I thought I passed out. My car is still where it needs to be. I know where my phone is. Like, I don't know what time is it? Like, am I late for work? No? Okay, good. And so April of 2019, I start seeing this guy. Within 2 weeks, I move him in with me. And I'm not supposed to have somebody living with me. I'm like renting a room at that point. And like a month and a half, everything's okay. Like, I cut back on my drinking a little bit. We start going to meetings. I'm working at the school. I'm like still drinking during the day, but it's not as much. And one of my coworkers is like, you should go to treatment, this, that, and the third. No, I'm good. It's not that bad. I kept telling her it's not that bad. Like unbeknownst to me, she was like a full-blown addict, heroin addict at one point, and I didn't know that about her. So I just assumed that like she's making a bigger deal out of it than it was, which was not the case at all. And it was June of 2019 when, in the middle of the night, I went into the bathroom at the place I was living at, and this guy had left his kit of like heroin accoutrement on the counter in the bathroom there. And, right then I could have and should have thrown him out, right? Because like that was a line I hadn't crossed in a long time. Hard drugs, opiates. I had like 9 years from an opiate at that point. And so instead of saying, like, get the fuck out, I said, I'm fucking pissed you didn't share. And like right down the rabbit hole again, I went. Yeah, for a while, I was just sniffing it, heroin at that point. I was just sniffing it. He wasn't into like uppers, so I didn't get to do any coke in the beginning. And come July, I was driving him down to Long Beach so he could cop, and then he would like give me one bag and he'd take the rest. And finally he turned to me and said, like, why don't you do your drugs like an adult and shoot up?
Jeez.
And so I was like, okay, like, sure.
Had you done that before?
Nope. I mean, I had shot up ketamine like twice as a kid, but not heroin. And like in my head, there was a hierarchy, right? Like there was a line in the sand that I shouldn't have crossed.
Yeah.
And as the years went by and like I started doing more and more stuff, like that line disappeared and nothing was off the table. And so he shot me up for the first time, and this sense of relief that I got was like that relief I had been searching for my whole life. And from that moment forward, I put the drink down and I started shooting heroin every day. And so at this point, I'm like, let's see, 2019, I'm 29, 30. August of 2019, I smoked crack for the first time. November of 2019, I started shooting crystal meth. Like,
Jeez.
yeah. So come October of 2019, I was homeless. I had gotten kicked out of where I was because I wasn't paying rent. I had to give my rabbits. I have rabbits. They're like my children before my son.
Yeah.
And I had to give them away to a friend to like take care of them because I had nowhere to go. I was
I'm
living in my
sorry.
car. I had left my job, went on medical leave under the pretenses that I'd be going back, never went back. And then, like end of November 2019, a friend is willing to take me in with this guy. And like under the pretenses that we're going to get our stuff together, we're going to go to treatment and find jobs and start paying rent. And that never happens. So it was probably like February of 2020 when like just before COVID happened when I had gotten sentenced in December of 2019 for my DWI. and I got sentenced to task, which is treatment alternatives for safer communities. It's like probation, but a little less invasive. And because it was my first charge, that was what the judge had given me. And so February, I was supposed to be like in treatment, not using, reporting to task. I had the interlock in my car, which was no problem because I wasn't drinking anymore. But like I was literally blowing crack hits into the interlock because like you can't tell that I'm smoking crack.
Jeez.
There's a camera, so I'm sure it could tell that I was smoking crack. But that was like how diluted my thinking was. And
Yeah.
yeah, so COVID happens in March and everything shuts down. Task shuts down, treatment shuts down. I was in outpatient at that point because I had to be. I wasn't going to meetings. I was just running. And then COVID happened. I had no job. So this whole time I had been boosting, like sleeping with the drug dealer when I didn't have enough to make even, stealing groceries and giving them to the drug dealer and doing his shopping for him. And so when COVID happened, I was like, fuck it. Like I can do what I want. Nobody's checking on me. So from March of 2020 until like June of 2020, courts were closed. I was checking in via email sporadically. And in like that period of time, I picked up 12 other misdemeanor offenses that were all like driving without a license. I got 2 petty larceny charges, 4 possession charges. Most of them are like driving without a license, aggravated driving without a license, driving without insurance, the whole accoutrement that comes with having a DWI. And court opened up in June. And so like now I'm totally strung out. I'm shooting heroin and crystal meth every day. We had like a $600 a day habit. It was gnarly. And I was like 100 pounds. And I'm not made to be skinny like that. Like, as much
Yeah.
as my brain thought I looked good, like, I'm not made to be that tiny. And so I go to treatment. I mean, I go to court in June, and he's like, you got to get into a program because this is crazy. I had done like a detox and a 14-day program in February. I had done a detox in early June just to like try and get a couple of days under my belt. The 14-day program I didn't use for 14 days. I got on Suboxone, and when I got picked up, I like smoked crack in the parking lot. So like it didn't stick. I wasn't ready. And that like kept happening. I kept running and running and running. And then like I realized I didn't want to live like this anymore. And so I told this guy like if one of us falls out, like you you gotta let me go. Let me like I don't want to live. It was September 11th of 2020. I was having an out of custody review on September 15th of 2020. And so we had gone into Jamaica Queens to cop because that's where we were getting fentanyl. Because at this point, like our habit was so bad that regular heroin was doing nothing. I had to shoot fentanyl.
Yeah.
And so we went and we copped and we were on our way back to the train station to take the train back out to Long Island. And I had like just shot my boyfriend up in the neck. And I was like shooting in the neck at that time because again, like
I'm running out of
that's
veins.
where we had gotten.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like in the street holding my breath, waiting for him to hit me, and like cops roll up. I'm like, fuck. So now I'm dope sick. Now these cops are like searching our bags, this, that, and the third. And my boyfriend at the time had 13 bags of heroin on him. So
Jeez.
he like looks at me and like passes me the heroin while the cops are not looking. I had like a tiny slit in the waistband of my pants. And I stuck it in there, and they turned around and said, there's no female officer on duty in our precinct to search you. So they took me to the precinct, and I sat in that precinct for like 5.5 hours with a bundle of heroin hidden on me, freaking out, sick as fuck. Like, and then because COVID, like they didn't send us essential booking. They released us from the precinct because I had no priors and he had no priors in New York City and we had no warrants. And so we left. He sniffed a bag walking back to the train. And I said, I'm not wasting any of my bags that way. Like I'll wait till we're on the train. On the train, there were a lot of people for whatever reason, like They wouldn't leave the car. Like one person would leave and another person would comment. Like this is COVID. So if there's one other person in the car, you're like looking at them, right? Are they
Mm-hmm.
sneezing? So I did not have a 3 minute to like hit myself on the train. And we got back to Long Beach and I mixed a 6-bag shot of fentanyl. And I knew I was going to overdose. I'd overdosed a few times in the like 2 months prior to that, most of them accidental, but this one was like very intentional. And I woke up to like paramedics and I had been Narcan, they were doing chest compressions. And like when I opened my eyes, like my response was fuck. It wasn't like, thank goodness. Like, yeah. So that was my last overdose. And I knew I had this out of custody review where they were going to decide if they were going to send me upstate because the judge had told me, you know, I'm apt to jail you for the maximum sentence for all of your charges consecutively because you clearly are not taking this seriously. So I was looking at like 3 years upstate and I had never spent more than a night in jail at that point. So I said I better get my ass to a detox. And there's a detox here in New York called Cornerstone, and you can literally call them and they'll pick you up. And I called them on Monday, and they picked me up on Tuesday, September 15th. And I'd love to say that like everything's stuck there, but it didn't. You know, I was really, really sick, and the methadone that they were giving me on the detox didn't even touch me. And so there was a guy on the unit who had snuck in heroin and a rig and like he used his prison wallet. And I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. I just knew that like he had heroin and I could get heroin into the unit when my boyfriend got there later. So I told him, you know, I'll give you 1 bag for 2. And he like produced this needle that was hidden in his butt. And I shot up with it in this, and it's just like a random stranger. It did nothing. I got really sick. It turned out that like my boyfriend was not coming. He was not coming to detox. He didn't have legals looking over his shoulder. Like he wasn't looking at prison time, but I
Yeah.
was. So I had to
Yeah.
go. He never came to the detox. He kept telling me he was going to, kept telling me he was going to, and I believed him. So detox finishes and court tells me that I have to go upstate for a 30-day program to a treatment there. So I do. I'm like, oh, this is not going to be so bad. And at that point, like the the using thing was not so much a drive. They made me wait to get put on Suboxone. And so I was getting like really bad post-acute withdrawal symptoms at that point. And so I started like buying Suboxone off of one of the people in there until they put me on the Suboxone. And the only reason why I didn't get kicked out is because I advocated for myself, but I was also like chairing the AA meetings while sniffing Suboxone off a spoon in the bathroom and sleeping with one of the guys on the same floor as I was. Because like I gotta find something. I gotta fill that hole. Like,
Yeah.
what's next? What's next? Like, chain smoking cigarettes. What's next?
Yeah.
So,
Some kind of rush, something to fill the void. Yeah.
yeah. So we got to like day 27 of this 30-day program. I'm on the phone with my legals, and they're like, you need to go to a long-term treatment. And I'm like, the fuck I do. And my case manager tells me, and I want to mandate you to a women's program. And I'm like, the fuck? I'm not going to a women's program. Like, this is where I'll go. Of course, like, I'm still trying to do it my way. This is where I'll go. This is why I'm going to go there. I won't go anywhere else you tell me to go. And so I went to Phoenix House here on Long Island. And she tells me, you're going to be there 6 months to a year. And so now I'm like thinking that I'm going to be able to like get out and like maybe do a little crystal meth here, like have a drink here, and still pass my drug tests. And that wasn't the case. And like this was probably my second aha moment after the last overdose. And you know, I called the boyfriend and I said, listen, this is the plan. I have to be at Phoenix House at 12. I can't be late. They're not holding my bed. And if I don't make it there, they're going to put a warrant out for me. And his concern was that I wasn't going to see him. And at this point, I had like a little bit of clarity, like I had some independence. I saw that other people were interested in me besides this person who had like physically, emotionally, verbally abused me, financially abused me, like was really just more of a running buddy than anything else. And so he started calling me a crack whore, telling me that I was meeting somebody else. And I said, you know what, fuck you. And I hung up on him. And that was the last time I spoke to him. I did find out that like he tried to track me down in the treatment center. He called there and like pretended to be my dad. He went and waited outside of the one in the city that I ended up going to a couple of times until finally I said, my life is better without you. Like, please stop trying to contact me. I don't have any desire to have anything to do with you. But again, I'd love to say that like that was a big compliment for me. It wasn't. So at this treatment center in Ronkonkoma at Phoenix House, I was like in the office being searched and I'm signing all my consents. And I hear my ex-husband's voice in the door and he's a staff member there. And like I have been in touch with him via text message over the years. We were still legally married, but like nothing meaningful, no meaningful conversations. And so he just said, like, I'm glad that you're alive, but you can't stay here. We have to transfer you. So they transferred me to another one of their locations in the city, in Long Island City. And while I was there, same thing. I was like sleeping with like the tough guy on the guy's floor, the guy who had status, who had been there a bunch of times. I was sleeping with this other kid. I was like, sneaking in vape stuff, sneaking in cigarettes. And then come November, it was election night. And I had heard that we could get vodka from the chef in the kitchen. And so this girl that I had known from high school who happened to be there with me while I was there went down to the kitchen to get the vodka. And she proceeded to get sexually assaulted by the chef. I didn't end up getting drunk. I drank that night, but I did not end up getting drunk. And, you know, understandably so, she made a very big scene. She was very distraught. She got very drunk. And so all of the staff knew that she had drank. I probably could have coasted and like flew right under the radar. Like, whatever, don't say anything. You don't want to mess up your legals. But I realized at that point, like, I'm in this place where I'm not supposed to be able to control anything. And I'm doing the exact same things. And so on November 3rd, I woke up and I told my counselor and I told on myself. And I said, I drank last night. You know, they put me on a contract, the whole nine, but that was okay. I had a sponsor from a few years back when I tried to stop drinking. And I picked up the phone and I called her. I said, listen, this is the situation. Like, this is where I'm at. And it's not working. Everything else that I tried is not working. And so, you know, she's like, just call me every day and we'll go from there. And so that's what I did. I logged in on the NA 24-hour meeting, which is not the fellowship that I'm a part of, but it was like literally the message in my ears all day, every day. I got very into meditation. I got very into yoga and I learned a lot of mindfulness. I did a lot of really hardcore therapy those first couple of months that I was like actually sober. And then, you know, rehab drama started and people got jealous because I was like not playing into like the drama anymore. I was like sleeping with one of the guys still, and one of the girls wanted to sleep with him. And so I had taken a picture of my roommate and sent it to these girls who I thought were my friends and like made fun of my roommate. And they sent it out to all of the guys in the program that they had phone numbers for and made it seem like I had sent it to the guys. And I was wrong, right? Like, it's part of recovery is being able to say I was wrong. I was wrong for taking a picture of my roommate. It was not appropriate. It was a violation of her privacy. And now I can recognize that. But I didn't understand that at the time. And so I just thought that it was because they were jealous of me. So the rehab put me on contract not to have a phone or any sort of technology. Now, this is COVID. And we're not going out to meetings. I'm seeing the same bitches who just got me in trouble in group all day, every day. And so I snuck a phone in and I got caught with it. And
Dang.
I got discharged, but I was able to go to the all women's program that I didn't want to go to. And I ended up there. And, while I was there, I got really into step work. I got into my fourth step. I saved up some money and, I focused on myself. I like dyed my hair and I did things to make myself feel good. My benefits got cut off at 10 and a half months. And so I had to figure out what I was going to do. And so I relocated. I had no car. I had no license. Like I had no family close to where I was. It forced me to like really rely on myself and be by myself. And yeah, I moved upstate. I got involved with A up there. I celebrated my year up there in Pine Bush. And my husband now, like I have known since like the drinking and the Red Rider guy, like those days. And back then I like fiend for his attention. Like I fiend for anybody's attention. And when I got sober, he had reached out to me and we talked every day. And finally, when I moved into my own place, he came and visited me. We started dating and then we moved in together. And I love to say like things have been like fantastic since then, but they haven't. And life has happened. But I don't have to pick up a drink and a drug today because life happens. I moved back to the island in December of 2021, and it was hard. Like everywhere I went was either somewhere I had copped at, somewhere I had shut up at, somewhere I smoked crack at, some terrible memory. And for the first couple of months of being back here, like I didn't want to go to meetings. I would only go to meetings if I went with my sponsor. Like I wanted to sponsor other women, but I wasn't finished with my steps. Like all the things just to make me not feel myself and cope with what I was going through. And so I would give my like debit card to my husband. I would like not have cash on me. I would give him my car keys some days. And in those early days of our relationship, I definitely was hard to live with because I was hard to live with myself at that point. Like I struggled to live with myself. But I realized like when I lose connection with people who have been through similar situations, I get caught up in the drama. And so I may not pick up a drink or a drug, but yeah, I'll say some nasty shit to hurt your feelings. Or
Hmm.
yeah, I'll start a fight with you for no fucking reason. And so it was difficult for me to like be able to look at myself and be like, yeah, these are the things I need to work on.
That was tough.
And
Yeah.
I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
but I was able to do it. I went back to therapy, stayed involved with outpatient. I went back to school. We ended up buying a house and getting married and having a little kid. And he's 2 now. And I just launched a business where I take my art and, I bring life into death and I show beauty in all of the phases of the life cycle. And all of these things were only possible because like I joined the No Matter What Club. I know that if I go out there, like nothing is waiting for me.
Mm.
I'm gonna end up dead. And
Yeah.
my story has value and I have a reason to live. And if that's just to help one other person, then, so be it. Um, but I have like this crazy life now. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor. For a little
Awesome.
while, I worked at Task as a case manager under the woman who was my case manager. And like, yeah, it was very full circle. Now I'm working at an outpatient rehab here. It's a new job, but like I have a lot of opportunity and I
Amazing.
could have thrown it all away. I did try
Yeah.
and throw it all away.
You
And
did a few times. It looks like you had quite a few opportunities and wake up calls, and you kept going back, and it kept gradually getting worse. And there was always ways that you were still finding ways to go back to that old life without
yeah,
changing. But you did finally. That's incredible.
yeah.
And like you've been doing all these positive things since then. It sounds like.
Yeah, so I'm very involved in the AA community here. I could be a lot more involved. I recognize that, but for me, like I have to find balance, and so that includes like AA. That includes Dopey Zoom. Like I can't be doing too much of anything because it's not good for me because I'm afflicted. Like I have that thing where like whatever it is, it's always going to be too much. And so I'm still trying to like find that balance. But I'm not afraid to ask for help today. And I know that I have people I can ask for help. And yeah, like I have this little human that I never thought was like possible that like yeah, it keeps me very present and very in the moment. And I'm
Congratulations. You're
grateful.
embracing being a parent and everything too. And sounds like you take that extremely seriously. And that I don't know if that would be possible 7 years ago, So
Mm.
it's like, it's so cool to hear that. And I want to hear more about this artwork as well. I mean, do you think like creating things gives you a way to express emotions that are difficult to put into words? Like, tell me how you channeled into artwork and all that and doing it now.
Yeah, so I came very close to death, right? Like death was this thing that like it was my out, right? And it it was the thing that my family was afraid of. They were always afraid they were going to get this call, but it's also a very normal part of life. And having come so close to death so many times, I have a very deep appreciation for that part of the life cycle because that's really all it is. It's a part of our life cycle and it's part of everyone's life cycle. And death doesn't negate all of the good things in life, like all of the positive experiences or the beauty. And so I try and take that and like just show appreciation. I work a lot with like roadkill and bugs. And like these are things that like get discarded and like and looked at as like a pestilence or like a vile thing. And like I can just breathe new life into it. It's a way for me to like put my emotions on everything I went through into art and make something beautiful out of it and like make the world a little bit of a cleaner place and like just be connected to the earth because for me like spiritually the earth and the energy that is the earth and like all that woo woo shit is what keeps me like okay every day is knowing that there's some cosmic we-ness out there and it's not me.
That's so cool.
And so like that's what I use a lot of my art for. This is like one of my newer pieces right here over my shoulder. I still struggle with like anxiety and intrusive thoughts and like being able to do like pinning of bugs and just all this like very intricate work requires me to take that attention and put it there so that
That
I
was
can't like put it out and, like pick my skin or get frustrated with my son or my husband or whoever. It's just a way for me to de-stress and,
so
like,
positive. Like, it's, have you ever turned pain from your past into something creative and like realized afterwards that it helped you process the experience? Like, has that ever been the case?
I did so much like deep therapy work that I haven't turned any of my like deep dark traumas into anything specific, but it runs through all of my works. Like a lot of them has to do with like time is fleeting and like wings and clocks and the pendulum of the clock is a skull, like all that kind of stuff. And really, like, if it gets somebody to look at the world a little bit different and like be a little bit nicer to somebody or pick up garbage or, like be mindful when they buy something in the store, even if they don't buy my art, like then I made a difference. And that's,
Exactly.
you know, albeit small, the small differences are the things that add up. And
They
yeah,
do. I do. I say the same thing about the podcast. If it inspires or helps one person out there, I feel like it's a success, and I'm sure the same with your art, which looking at it earlier, it's like so different. And like initially looking at it, I'm like, it has like could have a darker connotation to it. But then the way you described it, I'm just like, it's so much positivity and bringing life back to things. I think that's amazing.
yeah,
And all of
yeah.
us in recovery and addiction, we were lost and near death in a lot of ways, all of us at one point, and recovery brings life back into us. So it's really
Hmm.
cool.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I do service work. I work at a rehab. I I bring the cake every month for celebration. I have a sponsor. I sponsor other women, and I just try and stay as connected as possible in all facets of life.
And you're an
So,
addiction counselor at the rehab right now?
yeah, I don't know if
Awesome.
I'm allowed to say their name because I didn't clear it with them
No, it's okay.
beforehand.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, I work at an outpatient clinic. We're going to be opening a methadone clinic soon, which I'm actually very excited about because harm reduction is like often frowned upon, and MAT is often associated with like substituting one drug for another. But like I know for me, like I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for those drugs. And if that's what keeps the needle out of my arm, then that's okay. And other people need to know that too. So yeah, that's
It's
so I
awesome.
think that's how.
No, I'm just like incredibly impressed about how, because you had quite a few what I would consider name of the show rock bottoms, and you finally crawled out of it. And I feel like you just finally had to surrender and give yourself up and finally just embrace recovery. And it was cool when you told me that you switched into another location and then started practicing your 4 steps. So it shows that in your mind, you wanted to get better the whole time, but you were still just making these decisions in the background that were holding you back. And you finally got it together. And like, you're doing so many positive things now, working for a rehabilitation clinic, and you're part of the AA program, and you do, you work with the Dopey podcast as well. And
Mhm.
it's like, you're doing so many things. It's incredible. Not to mention the artwork, which I think is so symbolic of addiction and recovery in a lot of ways, that I'm going to have to look at your pieces and possibly get one. So just as a keepsake, because I think they're really cool. And
Thank you.
yeah, so a couple closing questions.
Yeah.
What, based on your experience, what advice would you give to listeners out there right now that want to know, like, based on what Lauren experienced, like, what advice would you give to people that are sober curious, struggling right now in addiction, or maybe even got sober but still feel completely lost? What advice would you give?
Yeah. I would say just remain teachable, remain open. Like you never know what's going to bring light into your life and meaning into your life unless you keep an open mind. And so whether that be like keeping an open mind about going to treatment or keeping an open mind about finding a higher power or like maybe doing something that you were totally opposed to, like keep an open mind and try anything. I was willing to put anything in my body when I was out there using. And so it really took for me to realize that I have to do anything for my recovery as well. Otherwise, I was going to get the same result. If I didn't try everything, I was going to end up back doing the things that I was doing before. So that would be my
Perfectly
advice, I
said.
guess.
Perfectly said. I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. You're great with your words, and I just love the way you took me through a nice timeline of everything, so in so much detail, but also just getting the point across and being able to cover so much. And one other one, who is Lauren today that addiction never allowed her to become?
And myself, I get to be like an unadulterated, unbridled version of myself. I don't have to curtail who I am. I don't have to show up different for anybody. I'm able to set boundaries today. And those are all things that I wasn't able to do in active addiction. And like I have purpose. I never had that before.
Purpose. Love it. Exactly. I think a lot of people probably are inspired by you. I'm inspired by you. Since I met you through the Dopey podcast, I thought you were just incredible. And now hearing your story, it's like, wow, I would have never suspected just talking to you how much you've gone through and how much you've done. It's like, some of the people in recovery, everybody seems so put together, and I'm just like, whoa, you did that? You did that? And it's like crazy. It's great to see, though. And it's beautiful to see just how much you're doing now. And once again, the artwork is really cool. And I don't know if you live by any quotes, but would you like to share a quote if you have one? Otherwise, you said a bunch of deep things the entire podcast that I can use at the beginning of the episode. But
I'm very big into Rule 50, Rule 62. Like, don't take yourself too seriously. I did that for such a long time, and I was so critical, and I still am very critical of myself. So it's like, just don't take things too seriously. That would be my
That's a good one.
And
That's a good one
remain
because
teachable. That's like my favorite one.
I'm the first to admit that I screwed up, and I'm very self-aware, and I'm always trying to improve. So it's like, if you want to give me criticism, I am just open arms welcoming it. I don't want it 24/7, but I'm happy to improve, because we all
still have feelings.
character defects. I still have feelings. Yeah, I'm still a sensitive little, I'm a Cancer, so we're all sensitive. But yeah, no, thank you so much for being on. Can you shout out your social media if you're comfortable with that, and anywhere people can reach you?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Lauren Brown. I am on Instagram at I Draw with Light. That's my personal. And then my business is Little Brown Bear Curiosities. I have a Facebook page for my business, an Etsy shop. Things are just kind of getting cooking for that. So yeah. And I'm also on Dopey Podcast a lot on voicemails. I go to Dopey Zoom. I'm usually like 3 meetings a week in there. There are 25 meetings a week. So dopeyzoom.com.
Wow.
And yeah, if you really need some help, reach out to Ryan via his podcast and he can connect us.
Sweet. Well, there you guys hear it. She's everywhere, basically. So thank you so much, Lauren. Really appreciate it. And being vulnerable on my show just means the world when people like yourself come on and just share everything in great detail and are not afraid to admit it, because addiction is real, and the things that we do in addiction, we can't just brush off. We had to learn from those things. So you definitely are a perfect example of that, and you're doing great things. So thank you. It was an honor to have you on.
Well, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you.
Rock Bottom with Ryan. No bullshit, just recovery.